It started with a smirk. Colin Jost, live on Saturday Night Live, looked straight into the lens and dropped the line that kicked off a firestorm. Apparently, one of the terms in Trump's new UK trade deal is that we send Meghan Markle back, but only if she deletes her entire Instagram again. The crowd burst into laughter, but behind the laughs, a sharpened blade. A reminder that behind the royal PR, the speeches, the curated elegance, Meghan Markle's past still lingers in the shadows. Then came Trump's announcement. A new trade deal with the UK. But Britain's only request that we keep these two. It's a cheap joke, but the sentiment behind it was loud. No, I refuse. Sick of it. Photos don't lie. Or maybe they do, depending on who's asking. But the internet. The internet never forgets, especially when something feels ... off. That's exactly what happened when images began resurfacing. A woman strikingly similar to Meghan, lounging on a luxury yacht back in the early 2010s. The photos didn't carry her name, but digital detectives noticed faces, familiar timelines, and just enough detail to reignite a firestorm. Musk built electric cars and talks about colonizing Mars, so why is he messing with Twitter? The joke landed, but the real punchline came next. It'd be like the Prince of England giving it all up just to marry an actress from Suits. The crowd laughed again, but some didn't, because others noticed something else. The vibe. The vibe of those old yacht photos. The oversized sunglasses, the designer swimsuits, the effortless confidence, the champagne flutes, and the circle of businessmen and influencers. It didn't read struggling actress. It read well-connected. She had access, and access, as critics argue, doesn't land in your lap by accident. It's earned. Or ... negotiated. That's what makes this whole new wave of controversy sting. Because to those critics, Meghan didn't just stumble into royalty, she calculated her way into it. She studied the map, picked the right parties, shook the right hands. And that theory, the idea that her rise wasn't magical, but methodical, makes the fallout hurt more. He's isolated, in another country, no job, no ties to his family, minor children across the ocean. And suddenly, this isn't just about a yacht photo. It's about everything that photo represents. The bigger the gap between the story you sell and the story people suspect, the harder the fall when both collide. Which brings us back to Colin Jost. SNL doesn't do subtle. And they weren't trying to hear. In that same sketch, Jost called Meghan someone who keeps reinventing her past depending on who she's trying to impress. That line stung. Because it mirrors the exact criticism that's now exploding online. Reddit's on fire. Forums are full. Threads are stacked with screenshots. Guest lists, yacht names, metadata, AI facial matches. But it's not tabloids leading the charge, it's users. It's people with laptops, time, and a motive. And even more unsettling than the photos, the silence. From the people who used to be loudest about knowing her. The ones who once bragged in interviews. It's the ones who posted about her, tagged her, followed her every move. Quiet. Some accounts are deleted, others locked, some posts altered, some scrubbed clean. The theory, coordinated damage control. Precise, deliberate, desperate. And Meghan. Nothing. Not a statement, not a vague quote about misinformation. No soft PR. Post, no legal action. For someone who once sued over a headline, the stillness is deafening. And in a digital world, silence doesn't sound like dignity. It sounds like guilt. Or worse, confirmation. And as the digging gets deeper, more pieces are surfacing. Old friends? Gone. Actors, stylists, influencers, once linked to her, vanished, either scrubbing or going ghost. Whole pages of her digital footprint have evaporated since her royal pleas. And like since her royal engagement, not just photos, entire identities. Online records, interview mentions, even image archives. People aren't just speculating, they're noticing. And now even fans, longtime defenders, are finding it hard to keep up. Because the story of Meghan as the self-made outsider, the woman who fought the system and broke barriers, starts to slip when compared against mounting receipts of a much older, much more connected lifestyle. So now the question isn't if she rose through strategy, it's how far back that strategy began. Was she ever really the underdog actress clawing her way into the spotlight? Or was this always the plan? Some say yes, some say no. But that photo became the centerpiece of the chaos. A group of high-profile figures on a yacht, somewhere sunlit, somewhere expensive. And there she is, center frame, a woman who looks undeniably like Meghan. No one's breaking the law. Nothing is graphic, but the context. That's where the tension lies, the time stamp, the faces. Overlap of names and places from her pre-royal life. It's too familiar to ignore. And the fact that this image, like many others, disappeared years ago, that's what made people start asking questions. Then came the whispers. Whispers? Of NDAs, of deleted posts, of friends who don't talk anymore. Theories about entire online personas vanishing post-engagement. That wave of digital silence following her entry into the royal spotlight. It wasn't accidental, that's the theory. That the cleanup was coordinated, fast, strategic. Brutal, because behind every successful rebrand is a purge. Now people are combing through every last trace, scrubbing cache records, comparing old interviews, looking at who followed who and when. Even image metadata is being analyzed. It's obsessive but effective, because slowly, the story Meghan tried so hard to bury, is crawling back. And suddenly, the narrative starts to crack. Was she silenced, or was she scripting? Was she the rebel or the architect? Was she climbing or conquering? Even those who once saw her as a modern icon are now pausing, asking, wondering, because the image she built, the gowns, the speeches, the staged humanitarian moments, it all feels curated. And when something curated starts to unravel, the pieces don't just fall, they expose, cause this wasn't just a chapter. It was a blueprint, a strategy, a perfectly rehearsed rise. But strategies, even the best ones, don't last forever. Now people are asking if this part was hidden, what else might be? Not everyone was shocked by the photos. For some, they were simply validation, the missing puzzle piece. Proof that the version of Meghan sold to the world, the glowing Duchess, the trailblazer, the voice for justice, may have been more screenplay than documentary. As more content crawls out from beneath the digital rug, the story Meghan built is no longer untouchable. It's becoming undeniable. That's the question now echoing through comment sections and podcasts alike. But then comes the Prince Andrew angle, once buried deep in conspiracy forums, now slipping quietly into mainstream conversation. A vague connection, a shadowy figure, in the corner of an old party photo. Familiar names showing up where they shouldn't. There's no concrete evidence, no silver bullet. But the pattern, it's what's raising eyebrows. And that pattern is disturbing. Meghan Markle, the woman who speaks so often about transparency, truth, and accountability, has grown eerily silent whenever the past resurfaces. She sued newspapers for minor errors, clap back at tabloid spins, but when the yacht rumors come up, nothing. No posts, no statements, no interviews. In today's age where silence is rarely neutral, her stillness feels less like dignity and more like strategy, especially now. Just as she launches lifestyle brands and rebrands with glossy interviews, the internet is dragging out old ghosts. What once looked like a reinvention now feels more like a cover-up. Her message of empowerment? Some say it's starting to feel like manipulation. The same audience that once praised her for breaking tradition is starting to ask, was this all part of a long game? And it's not just one photo that started it, it's everything that follows. Why were those posts wiped? Why did old friends go dark? Why is Meghan so quick to speak in the past, now saying nothing? In the vacuum of answers, the internet fills in its own. And once the perception shifts, it's nearly impossible to control the narrative. Colin Jost wasn't just making a joke on SNL. That segment cracked open something bigger. The crowd laughed, but not out of humor, out of recognition. As if everyone watching suddenly realized they were all thinking the same thing. A woman once seen as untouchable had just been turned into a punchline. And when late night starts? Joking, it's not gossip anymore, it's mainstream. Even traditionally sympathetic media started using words like mysterious deletions and unanswered questions. The tone had shifted, but the real fuel came from regular people, citizen sleuths. Not paparazzi, not tabloids. Just everyday viewers with internet access, facial recognition apps, and a determination to find the missing pieces. And what they found wasn't explosive, but it was consistent. Yacht sightings matched with Instagram timestamps. Event guest lists overlapped with her known circles. Entire web pages quietly erased. It wasn't one damning revelation. It was a spiderweb of connections to clean, too aligned, too deliberate. But more telling than the data was the behavior of the people around her. Former co-stars, dodging questions. Stylists, silent, influencers who once tagged her. Ghosted, some reportedly under NDAs. Others just gone. When people stop talking, it's rarely random. It's usually about protection. Behind the scenes, there's talk of damage control as EO. Experts pushing positive stories, media outlets quietly fed feel-good features. Requests sent to platforms to scrub tags and blur names. But this isn't 2010. Scrubbing the internet isn't so simple anymore. In fact, every attempt to erase only makes it louder. And that's the problem. Once the public suspects there's a mask involved, they start questioning everything. The speeches, the causes, the love story. Was any of it real? Or was it always carefully choreographed? Audiences aren't demanding perfection. They're asking for honesty. And when someone builds their entire platform on authenticity, then dodges the hard truths, it backfires. If Meghan had stepped forward and said, "Yes, I had a different life. Yes, I changed. Man, yes, I made choices along the way," people might have respected that. But the refusal to acknowledge it at all? That's what breaks trust. What's unfolding isn't a scandal. It's erosion. Not in one headline, but in 100 quiet ones. One Instagram deletion. One dodged question. One forced smile. And when you build your entire brand on being relatable, real, and raw-controlled, silence feels like betrayal. Meghan was supposed to be the revolution. The woman who brought reality into royalty. But now she's becoming a case study in how controlling your image too tightly ... makes it crack. Not because she had a past, but because she keeps pretending. It never existed. And in the eyes of the public, that's not just dishonest, it's unforgivable.